probably houses or media organizations or media personalities, are decided to play against the rule. And this should be seriously, rebuked.
What do you mean by playing against the rule?
What is the rule in the first place?
The rule is that you should be objective when, treating issues. You shouldn't come with a predetermined mind. When you are, for example, I'm your guest here, and you don't come here and impugn my integrity, knowing fully the meaning of, integrity. You don't bring a guest up to rubbish that guest. Yes, you can ask questions, sincere questions. But when it begins to appear as if you are asking questions because you are determined, to destroy, your guest, there's something X where, is switching. There have been instances. For example, if you want me to cite an example, there was an instance where, a television station in Nigeria was fined, I think, 2 million naira for publicizing, making a news that is fake, breaking news. You understand? As regards, against one of the now the president-elect. I get it. The candidate of APC. And when they didn't even verify, so before it was confirmed that it was a fake news, such news ever came out.
But when you talk about this issue of playing according to the rules of the book, going by certain guidelines, you also find some Nigerians who believe, who have also expressed that thought that no, this is perhaps what journalism should be about in terms of trying to raise issues, raise the emotions, try to get
journalism should be about
what some Nigerians are saying.
Asking questions, sincere questions. Journalism shouldn't be about insulting people.
No, for instance,
shouldn't be about impugning people's integrity. Do you know it takes some people? Of course, even you today, you are becoming a brand in the state, and you have invested some years here. So for somebody to just come up, over in the next 3 lines and make statements that will rubbish, your integrity. I don't think that is what journalism is all about. Journalism is about telling the truth to the people. Journalism is about, asking sincere questions without ulterior motive. Journalism is not about, coming to insult people on programs. Journalism is not about, a character assassination. No.
All right. What about in a situation where a journalist asks a question, a sincere question, with the intent of bringing out the truth, to the viewer or the listener, and the guest is unable to provide adequate answers? Do you say the journalist...
public will see that this fellow is incompetent to respond to the question? They will not be interpreted as insulting your guest. There are 2 different things. I was here the last time. Before, like I said, it was Sunday, that anchored the program. And there were questions raised as regards, the chances of APC, this and that. They lost election in 2015. They lost election in 2019, in those states. That Ashwani Bola Tinubu was here, to make campaign and all that. Of course, I didn't lose my temper. We discussed issues here. And, of course, it was reading out information. And I countered it by telling him that at that point in time, Ashwani Bola was not a candidate of the party. He only came on behalf, of somebody else, who incidentally happens to be a northerner. But in this case, he is one of us. And he has been part of our project in the state. I gave these responses. Some people could have been misinterpreted that. And I'm sure after that election, we spoke, and he said, oh, you said it. So it's not, journalism should, like I said, should mean that we should keep, within the rules. Not asking sincere question, not paid, question.
According to you, perhaps you explain what you mean by paid questions. But let's take this conversation forward and talk about, the agenda-setting role of the media at this particular time. Before the election, we had a series of issues that also, looked as if, was going to truncate that process. We have the fuel crisis, in midst, Naira crisis also came into play. You also had the issue of security also coming on board to, join the bag of events that was looking like could make the election not hold. Now the election has held, but of course there are still post-election issues to deal with. And the DSS just recently came out to say that some persons were trying to destabilize the country. When you put all of this together at the back of your mind, and you also understand the role of the media, which is to serve as watchdog and of course to hold the realm, as it were, what should we be doing right now? What in terms of agenda setting and dousing the tension?
Yes, what we should be doing now in setting agenda is, preparing the mindset of the incoming government to what is expected of them.
Should we neglect the concerns of those who are also contestants in that?
No, you see, we are so many people in this country are educated illiterates. It is a procedure. There is a process. When there is an election and there is any challenge, you don't have, you are not at peace. You don't accept the result of that election. The law, the process had made provision for that. It is not by staying in a studio. That's why we have to be careful too, the media industry, and instigating violence in the country, where we are contending with so many things already. Even before this, this election, I'm happy, in one of the national television stations, in the Abuja studio, it took the anchor of a particular program to have corrected the vice presidential candidate of one of the parties in this just concluded election. You don't go on here and say on some substance defended issue, and you raised allegations. That is why there is a court. That's why there is a tribunal. The next thing is you go to the tribunal, but you don't go to the tribunal and at the same time begin to create chaos, crisis, in the city. It's not done. Then you will be treated like a criminal that is disturbing the peace of the nation if you go to the street and begin to create crisis for the people. And so nobody is saying, of course, I can be aggrieved. That I'm not in agreement, with this result. But the appropriate thing is, that's why we have eminently qualified legal practitioners in this country. That's their job. They take, such up, you engage them, they go to the tribunal, and they go and argue your case. Then there you not present your facts. For example, Mr. Obi, who is the presidential candidate of Labour Party, is saying yes, they should not declare the president-elect as the president-elect. But he didn't explain, he will need to explain how he got those results, even in the eastern part of Nigeria, where there are senatorial, candidates of other political parties, in that place where they have House of Representatives candidates, and where they have party chairman, party structures, even to the world level. In those states, it will be explained in the court. So they're coming to make inflammatory statements should not be encouraged by any media organization.
All right.
You were about mentioning what the agenda setting role should also be. What it's about shifting to the needs of Nigeria at this time, isn't it?
Yes, we're talking about how to solve an existing problem. We're talking about how to create employment. We should be talking about how to make sure we don't have again ASU strike in this country. I get it. We're gonna, we should be talking about setting the stage, setting the agenda for the incoming government. That we don't expect any problem about, petroleum. This should be, our international relations should be part of what we should be talking about. But when we begin to, wait and allow some, external forces to begin to dictate, how we do things, that era is gone. That's why we're happy with the caliber of the man who had won the presidential, who have won the presidential election in this country. It's not a pushover. When you are telling him that you should introduce this, he understands what you are talking about, and he can give you adequate response, either to support or if he's rejecting, why is rejecting. So it's not one dumb head, and that's why this this international organization, some of them they are not really happy about it, because Nigeria will no longer be a dumping ground. Nigeria will not be a place where they can just push their policy for their selfish interest. No, it won't happen.
All right, the Nigerian media has been credited to be one of the most vibrant, media, in the world. Yes, and that is because they usually project everything, the ills and the good and the ugly, projected. But most of the time they're criticized, especially by people in power. But they ought to project the positives and play down on the negatives. What's your take on this?
Well, my take is this: how many in 2022? I'm running out of that statistics now. In 2022, several American citizens were shot. Do you get what I'm saying? Lack of security, adequate security. Several of their citizens, you can search it, were shot. You don't get to hear so much of that on CNN. They don't dwell on it. It's not as if it's not reported at all. You understand? But they don't dwell on it. But here in Nigeria, the negatives is what we amplify. That's what they're saying. There are some credits that should be given to Nigerians. There are things we're doing right. You understand? But we're not amplifying those in most cases. And so the extra forces sees the negatives and they describe us from the perspective of the negatives. That's not, being patriotic. So it's not as if we should be, we should downplay or we should not report what is negative. No, but that should not be, we should not be happy to throw up that as, our headlines. We should celebrate, those positives too, in the media industry that's, occurring or happening, in Nigeria. So this, this is where the Nigerian media needed to look at as they are practicing, their profession. They should allow a stuff of patriotism, to really set in. And you see, some people do not really understand. They want to set, this place on fire. And so, even something will happen in Sudan. They will pick a video clip. They will just say, oh, this is happening in Taraba now. And they will send it to to the social media. And you'll be surprised that even reputable media organization at times, would have been caught in that ball of propagating, spreading fake information by amplifying such, such fake news. So these are things we should actually, deal with so that we don't, help the enemies of this country.
When you talk about trying to amplify what is right or what is good, there are also concerns in some quarters that, there's government, and what they do, sometimes it appears they shroud it in secrecy. Because when the media wants to find out questions about what are some of these things that you've done, you do not get any. So in this light, part of what has also been attributed as, perhaps the shortcoming of the current administration in the country is the issue of communication. How should, office holders, government also, see the media as partners in progress? Because you've rightly established that we have perhaps media biases, but against all of these biases, how do we now get to bring everybody on board for this Nigerian project?
I think each Nigerian media practitioner should see him or herself as a major player in making Nigeria a better place. That's where we start from, and that's patriotism.
Each Nigerian media practitioner or each Nigerian?
I said, the focus is the media.
Because some could think, when the media are doing it,
the focus is the media. The reportage, we're talking about the amplifying of the positives and not the negatives. So, and we're not talking about, the generality of Nigerians. Now we're focusing on the media. Are you getting it? Of course, there is the effect that has to be shared, that will spread over, all other citizens, in this country. But I'm going to ask you, that do you know any public officer that does not have a media, hate? The crew, the press crew that follows him about. So if you tell me that the achievement, the things they do, is probably showed in secrecy, I might not really agree, with that, because I know. For example, look at, Minister of State for Transport, Barrister Ademola Adegroye. His media, head, he's doing very well. That's the capacity and the competence of that media guy. Are you getting it? Whatever, aspect that you are called upon to represent.
Some say the principles at times do not allow, professionalism to take center stage. They don't allow professionals to also be at the end of all of these things. And that's also in a way forms a disconnect with the do. It's another thing for the principle to allow you to do.
Ondo State as a case study. I know that young guy who is handling the press of the governor is doing wonderfully well. And I'm aware, that even on this television station, the programs, the achievements of what Arakunle Oluwarotimi has been able to achieve as a governor in Ondo State is, being amplified. It's being adequately reported. Even on channels, television, on TVC, I see, these things. And what else? So it now depends on we as individuals to be up to the task of the role that we're expected to play to help government to propagate the gospel of a good government.
All right. Nobody gets angry when the good they've done is amplified. You only get ruffled when people bring forth probably your mistakes. I'm talking about patriotism. Is who should the journalist be patriotic to? The people or the government?
The country, the nation. It is because there is a country. It's because there is a nation. That is why people can be in government, and that is why that journalist can practice journalism. Are you getting it? Where there is no peace, for example, you don't even know where. God forbid, the places where they have experienced genocide, where they have experienced war. Some people, they won't see their loved ones. Your wife, it could be the husband, it could be your loved son, So it is because we have a nation, and so all of us, we should be patriotic, to this country.
All right, Mr. Tayo Moses Adu, social commentator, politician. Thank you so much for coming on the program to speak with us on salient issues affecting our national lives. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I know we'll have this conversation and more in the days ahead. We'll take a break now. When we come back, another issue will be taking center stage. Please stay.